I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, July 22nd, 2019 at 7 o'clock on the dot. If you will please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Amy, would you call the roll, please, to establish a quorum?
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here.
Supervisor Jim Nellen.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfel.
Here.
Supervisor John Stavinus.
Here.
And Supervisor Linda Waite is excused.
Yes, she is. Okay, first thing on our agenda this evening is meet and greet. I'll tell you, we'll just go back down so you do not know us personally. Have Amy start.
All right, Amy Flock, Clerk Treasurer, 4818 County Road P.
Mark Hain, Supervisor, 3930 Peterson Road.
Jim Nellen, Supervisor, 4501 Lower Lane.
Dan Wolfel, Town Chairman, Barth Road.
John Stavinus, Whitefish Bay Road Supervisor.
John Neal, Whitefish Bay Road.
And the gentleman signing in.
Tim Chapman, Bayshore Drive.
Hi, Tim.
Hi. Ryan Zaylor, Bayshore Drive.
Ryan.
Ann Parsons, Bayshore Drive. Lori Saxton, Bayshore Drive. Barbara Board, Bayshore Drive.
Richard Board, Bayshore Drive.
Mary Moster, Whitefish Bay Road.
Jeff Lang, Whitefish Bay Road.
Brenda Lang, Whitefish Bay Road.
Jim Mitchie, Bayshore Drive.
Who's the gentleman in the suit?
James Smith on behalf of Luke Tia's 46 to 80 Bayshore Drive.
Steve Laubenstein, 4997 Drift Road.
And last but not least,
Patty Chapman, Glidden Drive.
okay, thank you much. Next item on our agenda is public participation. If you'd like to have something on your mind that you'd like to talk about other than the granary, because we don't have a granary. If you are here to talk about one of the two zoning, rezone or winery, one or the other, I just ask you to hold your comments and we'll give you an opportunity to speak during that discussion for a few minutes. If you have something else that you'd like to address, feel free to raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to talk about it. So, John?
Speed limit on Whitefish Bay Road. It was brought up numerous times over the last year and a half. The answer is we don't do nothing about it because we're a town, it's a county road. You guys just got County P dropped down to 25. From my shop to 4293 Whitefish Bay Road to the east of that, where it turns 55. We've been talking to pretty much everybody in the neighborhood, and there was a couple ways to go about this. I'm asking you guys to step in, knock it down to 25 miles an hour through Downey, and from the east side of the 55 sign, 45 down to the hitching post. The speeds are getting unreal.
If I'm not mistaken, one of the people in your neighborhood went to the county board a few months back and had the limit changed on the eastbound side.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It has to go back to the county board of highway commission in order to get that done.
Well, I would ask you guys to do your thing, I guess, because we've been struggling with this for well over a year and a half. And the only reason some of the speeds came down is because John had the flags put on top of the signs. And nobody really cares. Nobody honestly cares.
Well,
And there's a lot of kids in that neighborhood.
And also, County P was down to 35.
I
it
understand.
went from 45 to 35.
Well, I mean, you said 25.
It's 55 from east of Paul's place.
No, I'm just saying, you said that we got it down to.
Have them knock it down to the bare minimum. Something's gotta change. Sheriff's department's been called, the cops are sitting there already. The cops have been invited to sit out on my parking lot because they left the center and they're not stopping at the highway is getting just nuts. And the worst part about it is, like with the bikes, they don't stop for the sign and we've been round and round with this. Last week, 2 of them pulled out in front of a semi again. When's it gonna quit? And the semi driver's gonna be at fault.
Well, we'll see what we can do with it, but I think you should be prepared that somebody from your neighborhood's gonna have to go back to the highway committee as part of
Well,
it.
I'll go around, we've already discussed getting all the signatures and take care of it that way.
Okay.
And the other thing is Clark Lake Road, from 57, just before Brower. There's 7 potholes.
We're aware of it. It's been.
And
it's
the
been
trench.
given- It's been given to the county twice, again today to have the holes fixed. The road is also gonna be
Okay,
repaved.
last week, a lady hit the pothole, almost $4,000 damage to her car. The county needs to step it up a little bit, unfortunately. Last week, they spent a week and a half cleaning the shop when it could be patching holes.
Well, they are aware of it. They should have had the holes on Clark Lake filled, but they did not. And I talked with Thad this morning about it, and in fact, I just showed John the picture, so I'm aware of it, and they're on it, hopefully. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna move on to our agenda. And the first question I have is, has the agenda been properly noticed?
The agenda has been properly noticed.
All right, and we would need a motion to adopt that agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
And I second that.
Motion by John, second by Jim to adopt the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? None? Motion carries. All right. Approval of the minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting for June 17th, 2019, and also the road tour minutes from June 22nd are in your packet. I need a motion to approve both of those if you've had an opportunity to look at them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for June 17th, 2019, and the road tour minutes, June 22nd, 2019.
Motion by John.
Second.
Second by Mark to approve the minutes from the Board of Supervisors meeting June 17th and the road tour from June 22nd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear none. Motion carried. All right, pending business, discussion and action on the road work, accepting the bids. We opened the bids last week, Wednesday, from Door County and from Northeast Asphalt. And you have those, right? Yeah, that was at your desk. Okay, I couldn't remember where that was. Baldwin did a nice job for us. They did everything. As you can see, it's all laid out. There was a huge delta between the county and Northeast Asphalt. And last year, the county had a huge advantage over Northeast because they had locked in the price of oil, and so they had a price advantage and we used them. This year, the price advantage falls to Northeast Asphalt because they have the plant moved over to Matthew Road for all the road construction projects up north. So we end up getting advantage of not having the trucking cost, and that's reflected in their bids. That's the reason for the delta. So the recommendation from Steve Perrin at Baldwin, and it's pretty obvious, is that we select Northeast Asphalt to do our paving. When I bid this and sent the work out, I gave them an option to do either an overlay or a wedge and an overlay, not knowing where the bids were going to come in and knowing where our budget was. But given the results, we can do the roads that we need to have done with a wedge and an overlay, which gives us a much better quality, longer lasting road bed with minimal increase in cost. So the recommendation that I think we would do is we would give the bids to Northeast Asphalt for Peterson Road wedge and overlay with a cost of $60,887. Forest Road, which is a wedge and overlay of $79,673. And Clark Lake, which is also a wedge and overlay of $71,503. It's a little more than 3 miles of road, and I think we should do that. In addition to that, that work totals $212,000. We budgeted, excuse me, we budgeted 275, correct, Amy?
Correct.
And in addition to that, we have to chip seal 3 sections of road, a section that didn't get accomplished last year, and 2 sections that we did on the tour, one over by West Shore or near West Shore, and then Forest Road. Anticipating those costs to run about $30,000, so that takes us to $242,000 of our budget. And as pretty much everybody here knows, we went way over on our snow plowing, I think by 20 or 25,000. So, and we had $110,000 in that budget. So it's a good thing that we're gonna underspend a little bit because we'll use the excess money to make up for the shortfall on our snow plowing. So, before we put a motion there, I just want to cover 2 other things or 3 other things that have come up. We also clear-cut the end of Shock Road. This is the area that we took on the road tour that had all the trees as you come down the hill off of Bluff Drive. Shack Road, right. And so what we've done there is, since we opened that up, it now becomes a unfortunate drive into the bay if you're not careful. So I explored with the county and with Lily Bay the alternatives. One is to put in a guardrail, which is like over $4,000, or to put large limestone boulders there to block anything coming down, whether it be snow covered or whatever. And the low bid that I received was from Lily Bay to put in 3 by 3 by 3 foot large limestone boulders there. We'll space them 2 to 3 feet apart so people can walk through with a kayak, but they'll be there to stop a vehicle in case it goes in there. And I think it's a better alternative than putting up a guardrail. So that'll come out of our budget. And also I received a number of phone calls this weekend with water problems on West Shore, basement flooding. So I was there this morning with the county, and we're going to attempt to replace a culvert, put in a larger culvert and do some significant ditching on a large section of West Shore before it's paved. Don't have an estimate on it, and we're hopeful that if we do those 2 things in addition to having the culverts cleaned out, most of the culverts are plugged somewhat. We're hoping we can fix that problem. If not, I'm going to have to bring an engineer in and do up a drainage plan. So it is what it is, but luckily we're going to be under budget on paving, and we can use the excess to pick up some of the costs that will undoubtedly appear with these other 2 efforts. So that's the backdrop. So with that, if you're in agreement, or if there's further discussion, we would need a motion to move ahead.
The only thing I want to mention is that the difference between the price given to us by Northeast Asphalt and the county is $60,000.
Right.
So you're right. I mean, there's no doubt which bid we ought to accept.
Yeah, it's all to do with next year. We'll probably have role reversal again, but
We're literally getting 1 stretch of road done for free if we do Northeast Asphalt.
right. So it was a huge delta last year on where Linda lives. I forgot the big number. So anyway, so
That Clarks Lake Road, the wedge and overlay, that's where the bad spots are, right?
yes,
Yes.
It's west of 57 to Broward.
Right.
Exactly the area that John talked
Yeah,
about.
okay. So can we get that moved up first?
Well, I haven't given him the bids.
Oh, yeah, let's give them the
I
bid.
think I got to do that first.
Okay.
But I'll be happy to call and ask him. But we're going to have, the holes should be patched.
Well, yeah, before somebody gets hurt.
Right, so.
And as I understand, this is going to be, we're going to ask that this be put into a bid package with all the necessary bells and whistles. I mean, the contract documents are going to be developed as they
No,
were last year.
this'll be it right here,
Okay,
since
this is-
Bodwin's done he took all of that data back and compiled this sheet, so in terms of where we're at.
That's why we have Bowden, right? That's
Right.
where we go from there.
Yeah, he went out there, measured all the roads, took care of everything, caught a mistake that I made, which was good.
No.
You know, we were gonna have a 100-foot section between what we did last year and what we did this year. He said, I don't think you want that. I said, no, I didn't. But, so, you know, all we would need to do is, through a motion, agree to do this, and I'll contact them and see what their timetable is, and go from there.
Well, I move that we adopt enter into an agreement with Northeast Asphalt Inc. based on the quotation we received with regard to road work to be done this summer.
And if you don't mind, we'll just say with the wedge and overlay on the 3 roads.
Yes, why don't we just say as outlined in the document that's been presented to us.
Okay. And a second motion by Jim, second by Mark. Okay. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I will let them know and try and get a timetable.
Okay, try to move Clark's Lake Road up now.
Yeah, we'll try and see if we can get that taken care of sooner. No problem. Okay. Next item on their new business is the winery alcohol liquor license request. And what I'm going to do there is I'm going to start with Jim Nellen, who is on the planning committee, and ask him to take us through the process with respect to this request. Linda Waite, who would normally have been here and done that, is excused tonight, so Jim is helping out in that regard. So, Jim, why don't you take us through the meeting and what's been happening so far?
I will. The planning commission met on June 20th to review the license application from Ryan Zoller, who's doing business as Bay Winery. He's applied for a Class A wine retail license. Mr. Zoller's intention is to sell wine from his home located at 4258 Bayshore Drive. The home is situated on 1 1/4 acres and is in an area zoned residential. The application, just so everyone understands, a Class A wine retail license is authority to sell wine for consumption off the business premises. At the planning commission meeting, Mr. Zoller said he produces and bottles wine. He said in the license application he's filed with the town, he notes he's built a finished walkout basement, a tasting room, and a storage area to support his sales and marketing efforts. In addition, Mr. Zoller has hosted wine tastings and has sold bottles of wine out of his home. Mr. Zoller told the Planning Commission that he began making wine in 2015, and his desire is to make a business out of making and selling wine that he's produced. According to the Peninsula Pulse, on May 18th, he opened his tasting room, which seats anywhere from 10 to 15 people. There are a number of regulatory approvals that need to be obtained because alcohol is highly regulated in Wisconsin, as is the case in most states. The State Food Safety Bureau has conducted an inspection and issued a license. The Door County Land Services Department has issued a permit for a winery as a home occupation, subject to a number of several considerations. I just want to take you very quickly through the regulatory, the several regulatory issues that have to be addressed. The home occupation license that the county issued says that only wine produced on the premises can be sold. No more than one non-resident can work on the premises at any one time. Customer seating will only be allowed in the basement, no outside seating. It places a limitation on deliveries, and it notes that the retail space is not to be rented out for weddings or special gatherings. There, however, is no limit on the number of people who can enter the premises, and it appears to be that there's no limit on the number of wine tastings that can occur. Brett Temme, the town's buildings inspector, said that he was going to go over there today and reinspect failed items with regard to the remodeling permit. And he thought that if everything is proper, he would close out the permit for the rebuilding. He said he's going to provide Mr. Zoller with a home business occupancy application, but there is a home business exception to the state statute, which means that heightened standards applicable to public buildings don't apply in this context. The application for a winery permit in Wisconsin, there's the three-tier system for controlling alcohol. It dates back to Prohibition. The state of Wisconsin is responsible for licensing the production or permitting the production of alcoholic beverages and is responsible for the wholesaling. The town is responsible and has the authority to issue a retail license. However, apparently Mr. Zahler's permit with the state is in the process of being inspected or investigated. So I don't know what the conclusion of that is going to be. The matter before us is whether or not the town board should grant a Class A wine retail license. The Planning Commission, which I mentioned, met on June 20th to review the license application. Did hear Mr. Zahler, who spoke on his behalf. He noted the reasons for desiring the license and why his activities were outside the town ordinance. There was a very lengthy conversation and discussion, and after a review of the language of the ordinance, which the town ordinance which applies to this, which was adopted in 2007, the Planning Commission recommends to the board that Mr. Zahler's application for a Class A wine liquor license be denied. The decision was based on the express language of the ordinance, and it's before us.
Okay. Mr. Zahler, before we go further, would you like to make any comments with respect to this?
Yes, sir. So I completely understand the reason for the ordinance, the need for the ordinance. I mean, you don't want alcohol or liquor shops or stores popping up in the most residential neighborhoods. The only thing I would ask is that you put into context the location of where I'm trying to sell it out of. So I'm in the country. I'm on 1.25 acres. The place where I'm trying to retail sell out of is attached to the home, but it is completely separated from the residence. It's a walkout basement, has its own entrance and exit, completely separated from the living spaces above. I understand, I don't know what the purpose was or I guess what was behind putting this ordinance when you guys brought it into effect. But I would think, making wine, selling out of a normal kitchen, selling out of a home, out of a residence like that. My winery is, like I said, the basement. It has a separate kitchen. I'm not making the wine out of my upstairs home kitchen or residence. It's all being done separated from the living spaces itself. So I would ask that, yes, you have a blanket statement here. I mean, you have very, very general. I would ask that you put into context what I'm asking for the location that I'm asking you to do.
Okay. Is there anyone here tonight that is here specifically to address this component? Okay.
To respond to his
To us, you may, yes.
Well, I would be.
Pardon?
I would be.
Yes, I said fine.
To respond. I spoke at the Plan Commission meeting, so my comments and my concerns would be very similar. I know the house very well because I happen to live in it for 2 years. We confined our living to the main floor, and the basement you wanted to avoid. It required, so I know that it required, well, maybe not because there was an owner there before you, but if they renovated it, it was a basement at that time that required a lot of work, both in thought and time and expense. And I understand very well, your interest. I was, however, very pleased when the Plan Commission denied the request, because I felt that they were very carefully and thoughtfully interpreting our current plan, and that night I became aware that it also is interpreting the future land use plan. I was happy in the 1980s, we lived here then, when zoning came into effect, and I expect that most of you know that Bayshore Drive is really quite continuous in its residential feel. And in the 1980s, when the zoning law came into effect, the recreational, which is now places such as Birmingham's, the Cabin, Bayshore and Westwood, and the smaller mom and pop cottage operations were classified recreational commercial because they had all been there previously. So if this license were to be permitted, to my knowledge, it would be the very first license of its kind in the area of the Bayshore Drive. So I'm asking tonight that as a group, you uphold the decision from the plan made by the Plan Commission for the following reasons. First of all, we're a residential neighborhood, and this is not within keeping to the character of the neighborhood. And I think if this winery were proposed to be next to any one of our residences, anywhere in a residential area, that we would all be concerned. Secondly, it's precedent setting, and to permit this license would mean that we open the door to other such requests. Also, I know that it's not in keeping with our current or our future land use plan, so that adds yet another reason. And as I said, I hope you will deny this request, and I thank you for letting me speak.
No problem.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate what you said. So basically, we're saying that anything with regards to alcohol, if it hasn't been grandfathered in on Bayshore Drive, we should not allow it. Which I don't see why future businesses we should try and limit based on a blanket statement. Yes, again, I understand why it was put into place, but take into context where it's at. Yes, I'm in a residential neighborhood. Do I have neighbors? Not really. I mean, there's one house way up over here. My property is completely fenced. The business occupation, the home occupation has to be done completely inside. So I can have nothing except for one sign out by the road. There's nothing that's going to happen outside, nothing that's going to happen on the front. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is for the retail, so if I do get the approval from the state and I have the federal approval, I am still able to do free wine tastings out of the home occupation. So the idea that people are going to be coming and going, I mean, that's not really an issue that we're dealing with right now. We're just talking about selling. So I have people coming in for free wine tasting. I want to be able to sell them a bottle to take with them. Correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, that's what I got, is I can do free wine tasting once I have state federal approval.
I want to return to that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'd like to get this issue resolved, and then we can discuss that.
Okay.
You mind if I respond?
No, go ahead.
You know, the issues are really almost are collateral. We have an ordinance on its face that says no license shall be issued to any person for the purpose of selling or offering for sale any alcohol beverage in any dwelling. It goes on to say in a building which is not a tavern, supper club, store, or other type of building where alcohol beverages are normally sold or consumed by the public. That's the ordinance that the town adopted in 2007. as a legal matter, unless we revoke our own ordinance, and I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but it hasn't occurred, we really have to adhere to the express language of the ordinance.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to revoke it, I'm asking you to tighten it. I mean, right now you have it so broad that, I mean, anything, you know, I'm just asking you to bring it into context and tighten it up a bit so that, no, we're not opening up or setting precedents, but we're getting more of a definition of what this means. I mean, you're basically leaving it wide open.
I hardly think it's wide open.
No, I don't either. I mean, quite frankly, under the ordinance, I really took this farther than I should have or had to, just to make sure that we gave you a fair hearing. We have not had other situations where we have had someone who is asking for a liquor license come into our plan commission, understand your business plan and your objectives. I did that because I wanted to understand the relative merits for or against, and they give you every opportunity to, you know, put your best business case forward. I don't see any latitude with our ordinance, nor do I want to give it any more latitude. Liquor licenses in this town, we have more than adequate places for people to enjoy a cocktail. Liquor licenses were grandfathered only in number through the town many, many years ago. Places like Birmingham, I think really what Betty was referring to is the fact that those establishments, resorts, were in existence and they fit underneath the zoning as it was, just as Brad Birmingham's bait shop fit underneath existing zoning. But in this case, our ordinance is pretty clear. We've given you numerous opportunities to present your case. I don't see any reason why the town would want to open up and leave ourselves vulnerable to other types of businesses when we've established where we have, and we have adequate liquor licenses and places to entertain, keep people happy, etc. And with that, I'm going to call for a vote on the board on whether or not we officially deny the license, or if they decide they want to approve it.
I would like to conclude this portion, the adoption of whatever the motion is.
Okay.
So I move that the board deny the application for a Class A wine retail license to Mr. Ryan Zahler, doing business as Bay Winery.
I'll second that.
Motion by Jim, second by John, to deny the application for a liquor license for Bay Winery. Any further discussion amongst the board?
I just think our ordinance is not that broad. I think it hits home right where it should be, so.
Can you read that ordinance one more time, Jim?
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to go ahead?
No, we have a vote on the floor. I'm sorry, we have a vote on the floor. All right, we have a motion by, I'm sorry, Jim, second by John. No further discussion amongst the board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. I'm
Mr.
sorry. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, this issue regarding whether or not Mr. Zahler can host wine tastings for free. You know, I would be very disappointed if it were to evolve that any consideration were received by you for anything directly or indirectly related to the sale of alcohol or at your premises, whether it's people who subscribe to a wine club, people who purchase wine through the mail, people who you ask to pay a cover charge. To me, that's all in the nature of consideration directly related to the sale of alcohol at your residence. And I hope you're going to assure me that when you say, if you are thinking of offering, continuing to offer wine tastings, that there won't be any consideration received for you, period.
Correct. There won't be.
In any form.
If they ask me, if they say, where can I purchase this? And it is in the store with a wholesaler, with a licensed wholesaler, and I say, okay, you can purchase this at Econo Foods.
No issue.
I think that's a matter of state law, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But you just can't sell anything out of your residence. I'm sorry.
That's it. All right. Okay, that end is taken care of at this moment. Let's move on then. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for attending the Plan Commission meeting. I appreciate the time that you spent. All right. The next request here for Jim, rezoning request from Steve Laubenstein to rezone a parcel from countryside to commercial center. And since Linda again is here, we're going to let Jim kind of take us through that, and then we'll give Steve an opportunity as well to speak.
This will be much shorter, Mr. Chairman. There is a 0.65 acre property that's located at 4052 State Highway 4257. It's 2 parcels up from Grandma Tommy's on the east side of the highway. Mr. Laubenstein has requested that the property, which is currently zoned countryside, to be rezoned as commercial center. There is currently a home occupied by Mr. Laubenstein's mother on that site, and Mr. Laubenstein contemplates that he at some point would like to put up a commercial building on that site. The Plan Commission, after hearing from Mr. Laubenstein, and again, a very lengthy exchange, unanimously recommended that the town board forward a favorable recommendation to the Door County Resource Planning Committee, which is where we'll go next. The reasons that were noted by the Town Zoning Commission, Town Plan Commission, is the proposal is consistent with the commercial activities that have already occurred in that area. It's been built up over the last few years. The proposal is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan for future land use. The town has a comprehensive plan. In that comprehensive plan, it is envisioned that the area on the, I guess it would be the east side of the highway up to the Mill Supper Club would be devoted, or eventually would become commercial. The parcels to the south and across the street are already zoned commercial center. And the neighbors, including one of the residents in the adjoining fourplex, have raised no objections, and in fact have indicated to Mr. Laubenstein that they support this application. Mr. Laubenstein did address traffic concerns. He said that if he were to proceed, there is an access covenant running with the land that in the event the parcel were to be rezoned to allow commercial use, the residential driveway that it currently exists serving the premises in that parcel would be abandoned, and that access to this rezoned parcel would be via a driveway that currently serves the property to the south. In other words, there would be one less curb cut onto Highway 5742. So it's come before us for a recommendation.
Okay, good. Steve, you have anything you want to add? You don't want to go negative here.
What's that?
I said, is there anything you want to add? You don't want to go negative here and change this, you know?
I think Supervisor Jim Allen has said pretty much what I'm looking for in the objective and the safety. I took into concern before deciding on this years back in the planning I took. So, as I said, my mother is living in this house. She's 93 years old, and at some point, which is we don't know at this point, she'll be moving out. I would like to change this to commercial center. It will not be changed to commercial. It will not be used as commercial use before that happens. But we expect this to happen fairly shortly.
Anyone here to speak on Steve's? Okay, good. We have a recommendation that came up from the planning committee that we support this to the county. So the next step would be a motion to do so.
Make a motion to approve it and send it to the county.
Okay. A motion from Mark on the rezoning request from Steve Laubenstein, a second.
I'll second that.
Second by John. Any further discussion on the board? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Steve will send a letter off on your behalf.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
As you know, they do have the final say. They can always find something, but shouldn't present a major issue. All right. Gee, I wonder who's up next. Oh, Jim. The next item on our agenda is the request to rezone a parcel under the Luke Teagues property at 4680 Bay Shore Drive. This is a request to rezone from recreational commercial and estate to mixed-use commercial. Again, in Linda's absence, and Jim was there, I'm going to ask him to take us through what happened at the most recent Plan Commission meeting. So, Jim?
Sure. This is a little more than a 2.5 acre parcel that's located at 4680 Bay Shore Drive. It's the former location of the Cabin Restaurant. And as the chairman mentioned, it's currently zoned recreational commercial. The petitioner wants to amend the zoning map to make the use classification mixed use commercial because he wants to establish a pool and spa retail business, including a showroom at that location. The minutes of the Plan Commission, I think, address many of the details, the nature of the conversation. There has been considerable interest in this matter. I received a number of phone calls, and I know other supervisors have also, including emails. The Plan Commission, after a lengthy hearing, unanimously recommended that the town board oppose the rezoning request. The reasons, as noted in the minutes, were the proposal is not consistent with future land use contemplated in the town's comprehensive plan. The town's comprehensive plan contemplates that this will be treated as residential, and it will be administered as such. Now, this parcel, you understand, is not zoned residential, it's zoned recreational commercial. The request is not in keeping with the residential character of the neighborhood and neighbors' desire to not grant the zoning change, because there were a number of residents who did appear before the Plan Commission objecting to this proposed rezoning. Further reason for the recommendation that this not be approved is that it would there are other commercial options available to Mr. Tigges for his business, and the idea that the request may be economically beneficial to Mr. Tigge, it is to the detriment of adjoining neighbors and people living up and down Bay Shore. The other point that was made was that despite the fact that parcels across Bay Shore are zoned recreational commercial, they in fact are being developed into residential properties. Again, in keeping with the nature. So I should say the draft staff report prepared by the land planning group at the county level said that that rezoning the property to mixed-use commercial will allow for a standalone retail establishment with an over-the-counter county regular zoning permit, and of course this zoning would be available to any successor purchaser of this business if it were to be rezoned, and that's it.
Okay. Mr. Smith, you are the lone representative on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Nellen's summary of the issues would say fairly encapsulates Mr. Tigas' requests. There were two neighbors who spoke, I believe, in opposition at the Plan Commission meeting. There were also at least two members, two public speakers in support of Mr. Tigas' proposed zoning amendment.
Okay. Is that all that you have at this moment?
Well, if you didn't have any questions off the bat, there are a few comments I guess I would like to make.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We're going to give the public here an opportunity to speak as well.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. So, by way of background, Luke Tigas is a small business owner from the Dubuque, Iowa area who has been coming to Door County for many years now, has family in the area, and is seeking to establish as the zoning amendment petition says, a small pool and spa business, family owned, because when he was visiting here, he noticed that there were no businesses that handle that in the county, despite the fact that the county has somewhere around 120 resorts, many, if not most of which have either a spa or hot tub of some sort. And so he saw a potential need to fill that business, and after a lease actually in town fell through, he found this property on Bay Shore. He is very concerned, as many of the public are, about keeping the character of the neighborhood in check. At the Plan Commission meeting, there was a fair amount of concern expressed over the amount of traffic that a business like this would drive. In support of Mr. Tigas' plan, Willie Shortner actually spoke to the numbers that he served when he owned Shortner's on the Shore, and it, by all measures, would certainly seem like a hot tub and billiards showroom would drive far less traffic along the highway there. Additionally, there are certain considerations when looking at what might be considered spot zoning, which obviously is a concern of the board here. And in that respect, one thing to consider is, as the Wisconsin courts have said, public health, morals, safety, promotion of public welfare. Well, Mr. Tigas' business is pretty wholesome. There's not alcohol served on the premises. There's not going to be people racing up and down Bay Shore Drive. He estimates that in his first year, he will sell maybe 2 pools and maybe 10 hot tubs, compared to what Mr. Shortner testified to, several hundred patrons on weekends through even early weekdays. So I think with that respect, it is taking into consideration the nature of the neighborhood. It's just a different business than what people are used to seeing.
Okay.
Can I offer a response? The issue regarding traffic was raised by, I believe, Mr. Shartner, who is one of the people who spoke in favor of it and is also brokering the sale. The other person who spoke in favor of it was Mr. T's sister-in-law. Everyone else who spoke up to it spoke against it, who spoke towards this issue opposed it. This is an example of spot zoning, and to the extent you raise legal issues, at least there's one appeals court decision that says spot zoning to be accomplished through rezoning should only be indulged in where it is in the public interest and not solely for the benefit of the property owner who requests the rezoning. This is spot zoning, And I just would, I'll make my editorial comment after, when you ask about discussion, when you raise the issue. But I think it's important to understand that the sentiments that were raised just because I want to make sure people fully understand the tenor of the concerns that people voiced at the Planning Commission meeting was that there was an historical reason why it was zoned the way it was. It was because it was a pre-existing use at the time of adoption of the comprehensive zoning code. And in recognition of the fact that it was a restaurant, it was a zoning criteria was zoning use classification was assigned to it that would permit the restaurant to continue in existence. But be aware of the fact that recreational commercial is solely because the district is intended as a resort area hosting recreational uses. It says in the narrative description for the current zoning that there is no intention to develop the district into business districts, and retail, office, and service uses are restricted in favor of recreational uses such as golf courses and restaurants. And all the surrounding properties, with the exception of the one across the street and the properties to the north, are residential, are zoned residential, and the properties across the street, even though they're zoned recreational commercial, have been purchased and are being turned into residential properties.
You know, I absolutely agree. The case law in Wisconsin is consistent that you know, any sort of proposed rezoning should only occur when consistent with long-range planning and considerations that affect the community. Now, of course, you mentioned spot zoning. Now, spot zoning isn't per se illegal, and in fact, when taking into consideration whether something is spot zoning, they do in fact look at whether or not it is a single property owner or a small group of property owners that are benefiting. Now, when looking at the validity of the rezoning at issue, there's a Wisconsin Court of Appeals case that says another point to be considered is the value of the improved property to the municipality in terms of an increased tax base. And the general prosperity of the area is a factor to be considered. Now, I'm not sure exactly how long. I'm sure Willie Shortner, if you were here, could probably speak to how long that building has sat vacant. But the court specifically stated that increased tax revenue attributed to improved land affects the general prosperity of the area, and thus public welfare can be benefited by rezoning, looking at solely economic factors.
Well, if an indication of the public benefit is the extent of the objections and the intensity of the objections that have been raised by property owners surrounding this parcel, I would suggest that in fact there isn't much of a public benefit that accrues. That's certainly not sufficient that the public benefit is minuscule in comparison to the benefit that's going to be enjoyed by one party. I would like to move that the board take a position opposed to this.
Well, I want to give the audience, the people that have come tonight, an opportunity to speak on this. I'll give you a couple minutes to talk, but I do not want everybody just to repeat what the former speaker said. I think you understand where some of the board already sits and where Mr. Smith is. So if there's a couple of you that would like to voice something new, different, or whatever, feel free to do so. We have filled my mailbox. You can go back and tell whoever that my mailbox was full. So I got plenty of input, none of which was positive. I can also tell you that although we have not voted at this time, I'm concerned about the same thing. You're taking in the 14 years, 15 years that I've been involved in this. I've never had anyone come in and say, gee, I have a nice commercial piece of property where I could build a strip mall and I think I want to build a house on it. Let's reverse zone it. Once it becomes commercial, it's there forever. And although your client may have the best intentions and may be successful, if he's unsuccessful, you now have a 2.5 acre parcel, which if John wants to put an auto repair shop there, or if somebody wants to put a strip mall there, or you name it, it's, you know, there's nothing to prevent that. So I'm resistant to doing it. It's a board decision, but does anyone here have any other comments? One moment, John, I'll take a resident. Yes, miss?
Yes, I am Lori Hanson Saxton. I live very close to this property, 10 acres on the water, 4635 Bayshore Drive, the stone house, the Lori house. We've been here since 1854. My great-great Uncle John is the one who took all the roads here, made all the roads all through the Door County. He wanted to have Bayshore Drive rural. That's why it's the way it is. We have lived there now. The house we have, stone house, is 150 years old. We have 4 houses on Bayshore Drive. We have 4 condos in Windermere. We are very familiar with the area. We have absolutely no interest in having a spa store where Willie's restaurant was before. We used to walk across the street to Willie's, go out to dinner all the time. That was something that benefited the neighbors and the whole neighborhood. We have no use for a hot tub or pool store at all.
But you have places in Windermere that has a pool, correct?
That's right.
Did your uncle have a pool designed to have Windermere when he designed the roads? No. It's progress. You guys are looking back.
And how many people?
Just wait, I'm speaking. It's progress. Progress happens. I know we're not gonna get this retail shop, and we have one, they can throw a stone from where he wants. There's a retail store. We need to look forward as well as look back. We have things where people want retail in our town, and we can't do it. We have residents that live down there saying we should send them to Sturgeon Bay. That doesn't make sense. We want people coming into our town. We're getting letters saying, send them to Sturgeon Bay. We want to build this. And I have nothing against old people because I love old people. But look around. Look at our town. Okay, wow, one person. I'm younger than you, bro. But look around. I'm just saying.
Thank you. Then have him build something in Sturgeon Bay, not in Sevastopol. Those are 2 different places.
No, I know. Why do we want to send people out of our town when we can bring people into our town? Why do we want to send them away? That doesn't make sense.
Sevastopol?
Mark?
Yes.
Let me ask you to hold, because I want to give these people an opportunity. If there's somebody else that wants to speak, and then we can go from there. Yes, miss?
My name is Kate Eatinger. I live at 4239 Bayshore Drive, so just down the street from the cabin. I am not old. I moved here 4 years ago with my husband. We own a small business in the center of Sturgeon Bay, so I can appreciate that there are obstacles in small business and things change and things grow. And truthfully, the spa store doesn't bother me. My concern is that once you change it to mixed commercial, should the spa store move on at some point in time, what are we opening ourselves up to in that location? I have 2 small children. Bayshore Drive is already swamped, and I have concerns about how that could be developed in the future should the spa store move on that may negatively affect the neighbors. So I would be appreciative if we didn't change that to mixed commercial, not based on this request, but the potential in the future.
Okay. Anyone else that's a resident over there? Tim?
Yes, my name's Tim Chapman. I live on 4689 Bayshore. I also have property on 4695 Bayshore. I understand the issues with changing the zoning. I would love to see zoning more flexible, where you could give somebody a probationary zoning request, and if that, but that's not neither here nor there, but that would be something that we could look at, and if this guy didn't, if his business didn't succeed, then you could revert it back. However, I am concerned, the guy that has, wants to buy this property, has improved the property. That property has looked terrible for the last 4 or 5 years. It hasn't been mowed in 2 or 3 years. I live right across the street from it. And it has been miserable. This gentleman who is taking this property, or who is, wants to buy the property, has done a very nice job in cleaning it up. He has no tables laying around, he has no banners in the parking lot, he's cleaned up, he has it mowed every other week by Brad Birmingham, and so it's much more attractive. But, you know, if something has to be done. I don't want to see it revert back to the way it has been for the last 4 or 5 years. It certainly has not been an asset to our neighborhood or to Bayshore Drive during that period of time. So I don't know how you do that, but to be truthful with you, if you were to say to me, Tim, what would you prefer? A spa in there with the ability to take that away from it. In other words, if it doesn't, the zoning, change the zoning back to a residential, or I can't remember your zoning category, but you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't think that can be done. But I'm very disheartened if something isn't done with that property. It's a mess, and it's been for sale for a long time.
Correct. I understand. The thing you have to understand with zoning is that we are under county zoning. That what you're talking about doesn't exist. It would have to come from the county.
Okay.
Our role here is we are given an opportunity to recommend, and I should have stated that in the beginning, we're given an opportunity to recommend to the county whether we are in support of this or not. That does not mean that the county cannot overrule us. If we go to the county and say that we do not recommend this, and the county then decides to overrule it, because Mr. Smith is very persuasive, our choices are to either leave it stand or to take the county to court, because under the comprehensive guidelines, we have the ability to do that. We didn't have the ability to do that before smart growth and all this other good stuff came in. So at least we have some fallback. But I hear what you're saying. It's no different than the comment I made with respect to the commercial stuff. But anyone else with a final comment or two? John, you wanted to make some comment, or
You probably don't want to hear it. Anyways, tell your client if he wants a nice first piece of property, you're all for sale in Downey, I'll greatly appreciate him moving over there so I can get the hell out of this town. And I will give them one hell of a deal, because they don't want you over on Bayshore Drive or on Lakeside. By all means, there's commercial property right there. I would give him one hell of a deal. Just like Mark said, end of the story. What's happening in this town is everybody's, oh, we don't want to change, we don't want to change. Okay, at the end of the day, everybody's griping about their taxes, but they don't want business in the town, so their tax base doesn't go down. And exactly like Mark said, times have changed. This is terrible. This is honestly terrible for a business that wants to come into this town. I've been in this town in business for 15 years. I'm telling you, it's the worst 15 years of my life. And honestly, hey, if Sturgeon Bay wants you, Jacksonport wants you, Bailey's Harbor wants you, or anybody else wants you, run up to them guys, because I'm sure they'll be happy to take your tax dollars.
All right. Back to the board. The question is,
I have another comment on this. I know it's not gonna change, it's gonna fail. But the one thing with people are saying, from what I've read here and with some of the comments I've heard about, it's a lot of congestion, a lot of, people on the road now. When Shortner's was there, when they were running a business, Willie said they had 150 people a night. Now you put those, how many of them are leaving drunk, driving down Bayshore Drive? So instead you have sober people going into a retail store to spend money, then leave. You're not gonna be having 250 people on a Friday night going there, eating supper there, drinking and leaving. You're gonna have maybe 30 people on a Friday afternoon, or during the weekend you're gonna have more people. I don't know. I just think that we need more stuff in this town. I understand, I've born and raised here. I've lived here longer than most of the people that come to these meetings. And I love it here, but we need young people, we need some growth. We can't just have the average age and people being 60 to 75 and what do we have? We have the old money on both shorelines, and we have nothing in between. You know, and why do people come back here? They come back here to retire, because there's nothing there here for them to do before retirement, unless they're really into the, yeah, come on, Mark, think here. Tourism, you know what I mean? That's the only thing we have is tourism for young families to come back to, in my personal opinion. And I do the spot zoning, I don't 100% agree with it, but in this one, Tim, I think that's a really interesting point that he brought up, that could you do, you know, can we make it like?
We don't do zoning, Mark. The issue, I mean, the idea, this is the whole context for my comments. If this gentleman opened up that spa and pool business and the building looks fine, I know it's been refreshed, and that's all he did from now until the end of time, you know, I wouldn't have an issue. But if something happens and that business now on 2.5 acre parcel, you could put anything you choose on that piece of property, and we have absolutely zero input into what it could be. And so we leave ourselves wide open. Now, I'm all for business development, and we'll talk a little more about that later in the meeting because of the comprehensive plan. But we have to figure out a way to do it where it's a positive for the community and we don't put the community at risk. And that's really, I think, that the issue here. And I don't have anything against the guy, and you know, but I think that's really the crux of the problem. So really, where we're left to.
Yeah, let me jump in with my 2 cents worth, which, Mark, you make some very good points. I think that we all suffer from the lack of greater economic activity in the town. And I am not opposed, I'd like to do something to promote economic activity. But the zoning ordinance, and we don't have the last word, we will make a recommendation to the resource planning committee of the county board. They may accept it, they could reject it. And if people don't like what they do, then they can take it to the Board of Adjustment for an appeal. So, but we are left with, it's one of those, it's either A or B. If you embrace the rezoning, that means it's rezoned in perpetuity. And the next person may want to have an altogether different business, and we can't do anything about it. It isn't, I think it's, I mean, I don't wish any ill will on this, on Mr. Tigges. Seems like a decent guy. It's just that he, in order to accomplish his goal, he needs to get it rezoned, and that's a step too far. That's all.
Okay, we need a motion on the floor to support or deny.
Dan, are we done with public participation?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, miss.
So my comment would be to Mark, there are a lot of empty buildings downtown. Why doesn't he pick one of those? Why does he think any traffic flow would be going on Bay Shore Drive, which is residential? He could move into Cherry Point Mall. That's where you're gonna see people, not out
So
on
I
Bay Shore
already
Drive.
commented on that. Why do we want to chase people out of our town?
Why would you ever want to have, where do you live?
I live right up the road from Econo Foods and Culver's. I have
Okay.
no problem with traffic.
Well, there you
But
go.
anyway, so you're not
But
gonna
you
answer, you're not
chose to
gonna
live
respond to
there.
my question?
We chose to live out in the countryside.
I do too.
Well, you live next to Econo, that's not the countryside.
Well, no, I don't, but I live up the road in the country. I hate this
There
trip.
you go. So you can move to your neighborhood.
We have no idea why the gentleman decided to buy Willie Shartner's place, or actually he didn't buy it from Willie. Willie was the agent. Maybe Willie's a better salesman than we ever thought. I don't know.
Well, you know, if you think about it though, you have people with ginormous houses down there.
Oh, absolutely.
They have pools, hot tubs, and spas. Go to where the business is, right? I mean, and it's, you know, it's a well-known area.
All right. What's your pleasure?
I would like to make a motion that the town board recommend against granting the rezoning, the change in the zoning classification.
Okay, motion by Jim,
I'll second that, because.
second by John, that the town not support the request for rezoning on the property at 4680 Bayshore Drive. Any last words? Otherwise, we will,
I just don't think it fits with the comprehensive plan that we worked so diligently to,
put
a
together.
lot of man-hours put together, and so.
I can't disagree with that either. Although, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for appearing this evening. I appreciate that, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr.
And we
Chairman.
will send a letter to the county telling them our position, and
I
it'll
appreciate
fall
your
back
time.
on you, so. I might mention before those of you that were here leave, that this is a recommendation to the county, and if you have concern, I would express your feelings to the county.
And that meeting is
Directly.
August 9th
August 9th, okay.
for his hearing for the plan commission of the county.
All right. Next item is a discussion regarding the Muscat property. Oh, boy. And I think I don't know where everybody is on it, so I'll recap it briefly. We've been trying to get these parcels removed for numerous years through the county. We've made efforts and had no success. We have restarted the process of trying to get these buildings removed. And in the process, we contacted the state of Wisconsin, and we were able to get them to go out and verify that the fuel tank that's buried underground underneath the pump has fuel in it, and in doing so, this raises the level of concern by the state and causes it to get moved up in the food chain so that it can be removed from the ground. And part of the process is that in order for them to pursue this through the courts, they have to find out who owns it. And as strange as this may seem, this was passed through on an inheritance. And as I understand, and Jim can certainly fill in the blanks if need be, they never took the entire process through the courts. And so we're not sure who the owner is. It hasn't been legally defined. So before we can get back to the state so that they can pursue the removal of the tank, we need to find out who actually has legal title to the buildings. So the item on the agenda here is to authorize our attorney, Randy Nesbitt, to pursue deeded ownership, which means he will go to the Illinois courts and ask them to finish the case and eventually find out who owns it, whose name's going to be on the deed, and then we can give that to the state of Wisconsin, who will in turn pursue this if necessary through the courts to get the fuel tank removed from the ground, which is partially filled. At the same time, we're working on still trying to work with the DNR, and we'll put that on a future agenda, to get a letter from the DNR saying they have verbally told me it would be okay, but you know how we need documentation, that we can begin to remove some of those buildings as long as we stay clear of the fuel concern. So I would need a motion just to authorize Randy to continue to work on
Well,
this.
how much is this gonna cost?
We don't know the total
We're gonna
cost.
send him down on vacation?
We are. He's gonna go to the
Yeah,
Caribbean and
and
come
then-
back up. No,
What do
it's
we get
all-
out of this?
And then he can,
Piece of property that we have.
It's all done through the paperwork. He's actually done some of it as part of the process to remove some of the buildings. He's actually done some of the legwork, but now he has to pursue it through the Illinois court system and define an owner.
okay, but what if they have to go through the process, who pays for that process? Would we have to pay for all
We'll
that
pay for
process
the- We'll
too?
pay for the attorney's fees.
We'd pay for Randy's attorney's fees plus all the other attorney's
No.
fees to find?
No, we don't pay for the other attorneys. We pay for our attorney to ask their court system
Okay.
to tell us who owns it,
The court system,
the court system.
not
We're not
another
going
attorney to.
Yeah, we're not going to anybody but to the probate court, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I believe that's the case. What we've got right now is exactly what the chairman said. We have a piece of property, and even though someone is paying taxes on the property, generally current.
Can't you
not
go
always.
ask the farmer where he sends his
Well, the-
check when
the
he plants
problem
his
is-
or plants his corn?
They know who's paying it,
Sure, we know that.
but it's not in her name.
But it's, the people who we think own it, we have no indication, there's no legal indication that they do own it. But the title seems to be, the property seems to be titled in the name of an estate of a person who's deceased many, many years ago. And in order for us to move forward, and more importantly, in order for us to get the, I think if we can get the DNR to act on our behalf in addressing the environmental issues on their nickel, I think we ought to be willing to pay, I think, the nominal cost of being able to give the DNR the name of the party who actually has title to the property. It is, otherwise we're stymied, and to your point, Mark, I mean, that's not going to be residential, it's going to be commercial. And we might as well figure out, I mean, it may take a long, long time to do it, but I think the sooner we start down that path, the sooner we'll eventually get some comfort that property is possibly developable into something else.
Yes, but if there is a tank sitting there, and it's been there for a lot of years,
Yes,
it
it
could have
has.
leached out into the ground, and that person, when you find that owner, he could be in the same boat as was Pete with all the wells that the property that John has, and,
Well, it
you know,
Just remember one thing, all that stuff that was downhill,
yeah.
and remember what's alongside of that property.
So I don't know.
Well, DCAP, Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer
Protection.
Protection, is the group that monitors abandoned gas pumps and wells. And whether it's leaking or isn't leaking, it needs to come out of the ground.
Right, but
And
do
the
you know
only
if
way-
there's anything in it?
Yes, they've been out.
Oh, they did
Yeah.
look?
Oh, yeah. We've
Okay.
had them, we restarted this, I don't know, a couple of years ago. It's
Yeah.
been in the works, but they physically went out and they can go on the property, we can't. And they verified that there is fuel in the tank. So they actually had a court order 10 or 12 years ago to the estate to remove it. But there was no one that took ownership, and they dropped the ball and let it sit. So we went back, had them reinvestigate it. They found that there's fuel in there. Now it'll come up on the priority list of a tank that's abandoned, and they will take it through the courts. But until we know who owns it, they can't go after somebody. Now, the weird part about it is if the tank did leak, right, and you found that to be the case, because there is no ownership today, the person that's been paying the tax bill could say, oh, I don't want it, and just forfeit the piece of property. I know it sounds squirrely, but we went.
No, I think that's exactly that's exactly right.
Forfeit it, and then we would get it.
No,
No,
we
we'd
wouldn't get it.
No, John, that's,
No,
that-
goes
that's
to
a-
the state.
Okay, good.
that's a very legitimate concern. The chair has been in touch with our attorney and has made clear, we don't want to do anything that would cause anybody to believe that we are that we are a successor in interest to the ownership of the property.
Exactly.
We want the liability for remediating this to fall on the people who actually own the property. But because we don't know who those people are, we have a strong suspicion, we're stymied. We can't move forward, we can't move back.
And once we get over this hurdle, in the same time, I'm working with, just as an informational thing, I'm working with two agents, two groups within the DNR that will give us a liability release letter for a small sum of $500 that will tell us that we can remove these buildings as long as we do not do such and such. And they will define that in writing so that if we went in there, for example, one of the buildings that would be easy to not easy, but easiest would be the mobile home. you could pull it out of there. So they will stipulate that if we do so on and so forth, we can pick and choose or take down some of the buildings, all of the buildings, whatever. Well, we'll never take them all down, but we'll try and get rid of a few of them. But we're working on that as well, in concert with DCAP, trying to find an owner so they can get the tank out of there and eliminate that problem. But the current taxpayer, who's been paying the bill and is subleasing the other acreage to Polish, or not Polish, but, you know, she could basically come up and say, I don't want that parcel, and it falls to the state. And we don't have to get involved in it, but she's probably not gonna do that. But you never know. So, and we're not talking, I can't tell you the amount, but we had a conversation with Randy, and it's not, we're not talking millions of dollars here. I think a couple, $3,000 or something for him to pursue it through the courts. But if we don't, it's gonna sit there forever, because no one else is gonna do it. So.
Can't give this to the county?
County won't touch it. They've been with Biz and Linda to Grant Thomas's office twice. I've talked to them. They don't want to get involved in it, even though it's right on the main thoroughfare. So if they don't do it, it'll be ours, so we might as well try.
No, it won't be ours.
Well, correct.
We don't
but
want any
we
part
need
of
to
it.
figure it out so that we can progress, so.
How much is state right away there?
500 feet, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, if it's impeding right away.
Oh, you mean off the,
Okay.
All right.
I would make a motion that we authorize the chairman to contact our attorney and commence a legal action to determine ownership of the Muscat property.
second.
Okay, motion by Jim, second by Mark, to authorize our attorney to initiate action to pursue deeded ownership of the Muscat property.
Do we want a limit on that? Not to exceed, or not?
No, not really. I mean, I don't anticipate, and we've talked with Randy, I don't anticipate that I'll have an issue there, but it's gonna be $2,000, $3,000 to do it. But, you know, the flip side of it is we need to do it, because otherwise it's, you know, if it's still sitting there with gas and it decides to leak, it doesn't do anything for our area either. So it's gotta come out,
Okay.
so.
All the rest is probably already leaked out, that's why it's only half full.
Well, it could be, or somebody came and took it and filled their car. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, motion carried. Okay. Budget work session. We are talking about Monday, October 14th, we think.
Yeah. That's
And
all.
you think that's okay for you?
Make it work out.
Okay. Mark? Okay.
Sounds good to me.
5 p.m.?
I'm sorry, Amy?
5 p.m.? 5:30?
Yes, probably
5:30 be
5:30. Okay, not an easy one. Okay, last thing here, committee appointments. I probably could have done this earlier, but we did have Jim added as an alternate to the planning committee. Given your status is not always available, we need to make sure we have a quorum. So I've appointed Jim as an alternate until such time as you're back on a regular basis.
Okay.
So I prefer to keep less supervisors on that as possible. So just so you're aware of it. All right, building permits or and inspection fees. This was a rollover from last month. Amy went to the WTA with this. She also gave it back to Brett for another review in terms of what's up. Essentially, there's very little change. And Amy helped me with this because I'm not sure I recall. Did we not send this also to Randy?
We
when
had
we
sent
did
it
the
to Randy
commercial code.
previously,
That's
correct?
right, correct. So he had seen this when we did the commercial code edition 18 months ago.
Correct.
Okay. So we need to approve this and update our ordinance, which is ordinance number 01-2019, building permits, inspection fees, and building code.
If I can, I'll make the motion if I can.
Okay. What do you need?
Just the title.
Oh, sorry.
I move the adoption of ordinance number 01-219 entitled Building Permits, Inspection Fees, and Building Code.
Okay, motion by Jim,
I'll second that.
second by John. Any further discussion on this?
Is that 219 or is it 2019?
2019, 2019.
Okay, he said, yeah, it just,
Dyslexia.
No.
well, no, the way he said it, make sure it's 2019, like.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance number 01-2019, building permits, inspection fees, and building code. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, financial reports. You have the account balances. You have the budget versus actual January through June of 2019. And you also have the transaction list by date. Yes, all of those. So if you had a chance to take a look at those, if you don't have any questions, we'd make a motion and we would put those on
I
the
have
file.
just a little question, comment.
Go right ahead.
With the 911 lawn care,
Yes.
so we're not doing the spraying of the town grounds here?
I don't, at the time, I don't even remember how that happened, but we used them for some particular reason. I don't know why. I would have said that we would have
We have
used
two
our.
bills from them, 150 and 550.
I don't know what the 150 is. Is that a payment for something else that you have done, Amy?
I think they cleaned up around the building here.
Oh, that
Isn't it?
might have been right. They did the
Correct.
weeding around here.
Right.
Yep.
So they sprayed, and then
Yeah.
they sprayed over by the kiosk as well.
After the well and everything, I think.
Yep.
So do we not have the couple that do the?
No, they're gone.
outside.
What's that?
They're
They
gone.
don't go outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the stuff at the kiosk should have been done by our park guys, but it was also, I don't remember when the actual work was done. It might have been before we had the park guys.
And that's exactly what it was.
Is that what it was?
The kiosk was looking very bad.
Very
so we-
untidy?
So we sent them out there.
Okay. Our focus in the future is going to be to try and use our own guys to do that, you know, so we don't have to incur that, because that was a pretty big chunk of cash.
Yeah, and for the record, I have nothing against 911 lawn care. I mean,
No,
it's
no,
just- it
I
doesn't
don't
matter who
either.
it is. When I saw that, I was just kind of questioning why you would have our guys. I didn't see a date when it was done or, you know,
Good question for you.
it's the only question I had.
This ordinance at the end has a roll call. Do we have to have a roll call on that last one?
I believe we do have to have a roll call vote for the ordinance.
You're right. Thank you.
You ready?
Sure.
Supervisor John Stavenus,
Aye.
Chairman Dan Wolfle,
Aye.
Supervisor Jim Nellen,
Aye.
Supervisor Mark Hayne.
Aye.
Thanks for catching that. Okay. Motion to accept the financial reports if there's no more questions on that. Linda?
She's awful quiet.
I move the approval of the vouchers, bills, and claims for the period June 18th, 2019 through July 22nd, 2019.
I'll second it.
All right, motion by Jim, second by John to approve vouchers, bills, and claims, June 18th through July 22nd, 2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, approved, thank you. Oral committee reports, if there are any.
I have only one.
Okay.
This has to do with the Room Tax Commission. The first point I want to make is that through May 2019, Sevastopol room tax collections are up 4.2%. mostly because of an almost 7% increase in the average daily room rate. There was a modest increase in the occupancy rate also. The second issue is that going back to Chuck Tice, who preceded me, he had raised the issue that with regard to the marketplace, the lodging marketplaces, that if they are asked to actually collect and remit to the towns room taxes, that they will not have the information they need to tell the room tax commission, who would receive the taxes, where those taxes were collected. So we would receive an aggregate check, for example, of $20,000, and it would be made payable to the room tax commission for zip code 54235, consisting of one city and all or parts of 5 towns. And this is not just an Airbnb problem, it's a HomeAway problem, it's Expedia, it's Orbitz, Hotwire, Travelscape. There's something like 19 of these lodging marketplaces that are in the business of arranging for short-term rentals, acting as intermediaries to facilitate short-term rentals. Well, Airbnb, in connection, I think, with the recently adopted state budget, has recently registered with the State Department of Revenue as a licensed lodging marketplace. And by doing so, it will assume the responsibility of collecting taxes directly from the lodging entities on whose behalf it makes, it arranges short-term lodging, and the town. Right now, and the room tax. The way it works right now is the room tax commission issues permits to every lodging entity in the county. And the lodging entity then remits money to the room tax commission. The room tax commission knows where that lodging entity is located, whether they're in the town of Egg Harbor, the village of Egg Harbor, the town of Sevastopol, you name it. So we have clarity in terms of being able to assign amounts received to the sourcing community. It's important because without that, there's no way of determining how you allocate, the town, it's impossible to figure out what towns are entitled to the 30% of the room taxes collected that go back to the municipalities. In addition, that's very important because it also, for the local marketing entities, they get a pro rata share of whatever those room tax amounts are that are being remitted. So because I think where I am on my notes, we've been informed that Airbnb might be unwilling, when remitting tax is collected, to identify the particular municipality in which that tax is generated. This is despite the fact that the statute requires the lodging marketplace to contact each municipality and is required to ensure the room taxes collected are forwarded to that particular municipality. In this case, of course, the room tax commission receives the taxes on behalf of the municipalities, all 19 municipalities. We hope to begin a discussion with Airbnb in which we'll be able to resolve this, that they will be able to give us the information when they send us payments, so that we'll clearly understand the sourcing municipality. If that's the case, then we'll continue as business as usual. And we probably won't know for 60 days exactly what Airbnb intends to do in that regard. There is a letter that
I just signed 3. I had it all set up, and Amy's got them on her desk signed to go. So we'll do the letter in support of identifying the need to identify the individual tax recipient. So yes.
If this is clear as mud, I can take another stab
No,
at it.
I understand, but maybe what they ought to do is, Sturgeon Bay must be really worried about this because the the smaller municipalities, like, you know, the zip code, if they go by the zip code, how are they gonna split it, 5 ways?
Sturgeon Bay isn't concerned about this at all.
Really?
Well, they get the whole check.
Well, no, but they would have to split that.
Well, then the
But if
question
they
is
split
how
that,
do you split it?
if they split it 5 ways, people like Jacksonport, us, you know, the smaller municipalities are gonna make out like bandits if
What
they
if they
split
say,
it.
what if they say they only split 5% of it because they believe, you know?
Well, yeah, that's the other problem.
I know.
It's like, and how do you know?
The worst, the nightmare scenario is we get a check in for a certain amount of money by zip code. And it's not just our problem, the towns in the northern part of the county also will encounter the same issue.
Right.
We get a check for X amount of money, we'll have no idea how it's allocated among the several municipalities within that zip code. So it'll go into a suspense account until we have some clarity as to how we can allocate it properly among the municipalities. And I've been informed, and I fully understand, I was taken aside in one of the room tax commission meetings by a fellow who's administrator for one of the northern communities, and he said, that's not acceptable. His point he was making was, he understands the nature of the problem. What he was getting at is, they depend on those receipts. That's how that money is allocated, and they need to receive that money because it goes into, it was taken into account in determining the budget expenditures. So.
Wow. It's gonna be a bigger mess than it already is.
We're gonna skip the county board report from Ms. Waite. She's been all too
You know,
quiet
she
this
doesn't have
evening.
anything to say tonight.
Well, that's true. She has nothing to say. Good point.
Mr. Chairman, I need a motion on the vouchers, bills, and claims.
We did.
We did the financial reports.
I believe that
We did the vouchers,
we
bills,
did
and
the
claims.
vouchers, bills, and claims.
Not the financial report.
So we need
So
to go
we-
back to
okay.
the financial reports. Okay, you're right. We did the vouchers, bills, and claims. So we need one new motion on the financial reports.
That's Jim's fault, because he read the wrong part.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial report, June 2019.
All right,
Second.
John made the motion, Mark second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, pass. All right, now we're legal, thank you. License and permits, interesting, the file this month has no homes. Lots of pole buildings, garages, and deck extensions, but whatever, it's all in there. Also, the Door County inspections, Brett Timmy's report back to us really lays it out clean and neat in terms of where the funds come from back to the town and where they're at. So you have that information. Oh, and the motorcycle picnic license. Amy, you gave this out, correct?
I did. The Door County Motorcycle Club made application with us to have a picnic license for their Burning Cow July 18th through the 20th, and we did approve it.
Okay.
What's the noise ordinance time?
Don't know off the top of my head.
It was after 11:30, for sure. The music was still booming. And my mother fell asleep, and she thinks it was after midnight, but she said it started like really early Thursday. Just the music just boom, 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 you know, the
Well, what
bass
did your dad do? He always said the music shut off at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, he had no issues
He had
with
no
it.
issues.
hard of hearing for the last 15 years.
Oh.
I think the boom, boom, boom put him to sleep.
Oh,
But
okay.
I just asked, I was out there and I asked her, and then one of the other neighbors was walking a dog and happened to be standing out in the yard.
Well, we can fix that next year.
And then, you know, I can't remember if it's 10 or if it's 11.
Oh, we'll check it and we'll just make a note of it.
Just kind of when they come to get it, just.
come back to
you
get
guys
their
got that.
license. Because they'll be a lot more interested in the beer license.
Just kind of,
Okay.
is it 10? Well, that's, but the town's,
Towns is different. So, under correspondence, we've been going a long time, so I won't go overboard on this, but I wanted to talk for a couple minutes on the comprehensive plan update survey, which, if you recall seeing this, Mark, and you guys all saw it, right?
oh yeah.
Okay. So I have a couple concerns, and I spoke to Brandon today at Bay Lake, because some of the things that are in this survey, some of the comments that are made are totally off base and outside our jurisdiction, for lack of a better word. And so I'm not sure at this moment, but food for thought. I think as part of the comprehensive plan meeting, we may ask him, or I may, address a couple of these things so that our town residents understand what we do or don't do, because I think some people are certainly operating under a misconception. But the other thing, as we know, we only had 80 responses to this survey.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to send an invite out to the Bay Shore, Whitefish Bay, and any other association we can find, encouraging them to have their people attend the hearing that we have on September 19th, and I'll work with Amy on that. But if you recall, I didn't bring the sheet with me tonight, but we had that hearing, that session here. It was a workshop where Brandon and 2 other people, we did some A-frame stuff, right? So I started taking a look at that because I was trying to understand, you know, where is it from a direction that, what direction should we be taking, right? So out of those 3 A-frames, I tallied up points, because remember you assigned values to the items that you felt were most important. And there were 384 potential points, or votes, if you want to call it that. And so I went through that whole thing and I put them all into categories. And the number one, excuse me, the number one thing was affordable housing. Became the number 1 item. The second thing was high-speed internet, which we know has been an issue. Road repairs were 3rd. Keeping the community in rural farms fell after that. Economic development, which is to Mark's point, was halfway down the list. Zoning concerns were below that. And then school issues, and this is one of the areas that,
It's not funny.
where we have so many misconceptions, is so many of our townspeople feel that we are responsible for the school.
Yeah.
You know, it's surprising. Another area that was of interest was aging population and transportation. Then the last 4, concern about annexation, which frankly surprised me that there were that many people that even raised it. But below that was the 20-acre rule. There were only 14 people, or 14 points assigned to that. Short-term rentals represented at that point 10%, or 10 points. And the last thing on the list, the least amount of interest, was the fire department, 5 points. So I don't know how this will shake out. We have to work with Brandon and try and set the stage for what we're going to do at this hearing and how it's going to come across, and you know how much input we're going to take. As you know, there's going to be other issues with respect to the quarry coming up. I don't know if that's going to dovetail in on this thing at the same time, after or before. We don't want it to turn into a free-for-all. So I talked to Brandon. I've asked him to kick it around to what he thinks is the best way to approach it. I'd like to kind of spend a couple minutes with the people and discuss these things, but our job is going to be to encourage people to come and give us some input.
No, we can't do this survey again.
No,
I mean, 80 people. Everybody that I've seen in this past week, that's town resident, that have come in contact, I've asked them if they've done the survey. None of them have even heard of it.
Right.
My mother being one, and I'm like, really? And she's like, nope, never even heard about it. She's like, can I go do it tonight before the meeting? I said, it's done. You know, it's over and done with. I mean, 80 people that do it, I mean, that's...
I mean, tonight was a good example. I mean, for the most part, we at least had some people, however they got stirred into interest, that sent out a lot of communication and showed up for a meeting. Typically what we would see is all of those people would come after the meeting and complain. So at least we had some people interested. So I'm with you. I'm trying to get people to come. All of the people that sent us a comment on this or anything else related to zoning, we have captured their email address, and we are going to mail them a letter asking them to come and voice their concerns or not so much concerns, but voice their interest in what we do in the future.
And my question is, how do we get to people? how do we, you know, because you have to almost stop to read if something that long on the sign out here. You know what I mean? Please fill out your survey, www, you know, all that stuff. But how do we get to people? How do we get,
Newsletter
you
is
know?
one, but I mean, you're right. You know, we're working with the internet, trying to get people so they can watch this stuff on TV at least and be aware, but it's tough. I mean,
When we were doing the comprehensive plan too, it was tough getting people there, you
Yep.
know? I mean, it was like pulling nails. I mean, we offered, you know, food and everything, you know, but
I know, maybe, you know, the other, I mean, I'm not adverse to spending a couple bucks and put it on WDOR for all I care, you know, but I just,
Door County Daily News, they do a lot of free stuff in towns and stuff.
you know, I don't like the idea of people coming back and telling me after the fact, you know, I'll give you an opportunity to tell me ahead of time.
I think that's a worthwhile expenditure.
So,
I mean, we do, you know, to your point earlier, Mark, we do know, I mean, I realize that there are some significant issues facing the town. You know, we have an aging population. Not only is it aging, but if you look at the information we got from the Department of Administration, their demographic report that they issue once a year, not only do we have an aging population, but if you look at the households, there are the number of people in households is declining. So we have an aging population allied with the fact that we have elderly people who are living by themselves. And there's no, we won't see any growth in the population. And I think that, I mean, Dan has talked about this. I mean, this is a perfect opportunity for people to express at least their concern. And out of that, we can come up with an idea, okay, how do we respond to it?
I mean, when this issue with the quarry development comes forward, I mean, you can expect that we'll have Granary -2.
We might as well go over to the high school gym then.
Right. Well, we'll be having meetings in the parking lot, so, I mean, we need to
But
do
that,
that.
you know, that's another thing, maybe it's a little off topic, this, like, Laddie, look at what's out here right now, we have one resident here, because their little piece of the pie is done, and they leave. It's like, stay for, look at all these other things we've had 11 other items since they've left.
yeah.
You know, they only are worried about their slice, you know?
Well,
If that would've been down on your end of your side of the county, none of them would even have been here for it, or the town, I mean, excuse me. You know, I mean,
I agree. You don't have an argument with me. We just have to continue to try.
But
The other-
it does reflect, though, that
Right.
people may have individual concerns. What's the adverse impact, if any, of the mandatory 20 acres? What's, you know, have we done enough to support economic activity in those areas that we have, that are zoned commercial? But if you look at it in total, people are very satisfied with the way the town is operating. And that's one of the reasons I don't think we have an awful lot of people, because generally people feel that their interests are being attended to.
But if you think 80 people out of, how many people can vote, like 26?
2,100, I think. 21 or
I
22.
thought it was more towards 25.
26 is our
Oh,
pop, but anyway,
okay.
it's in there.
In there,
2,000.
over 2,000 people, that's not a very big
nothing.
percentage.
When I knocked on almost 600 doors and asked people, what are your concerns about the town? It was very rare that I had anybody who had a real issue about the town. The general response was, they were generally pleased with the way the town was operating. Were concerned about the schools. They were informed.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't have anything to do with the schools. I mean, it's just that, and I think that there is that, you know, I think there is a general sense within the community that they believe that they're well served by the town. I mean, do you agree?
yeah.
I think, Jim, honestly, you need to go through Bounty and knock on every door, down Whitefish Bay Road and knock on every door, and ask the people why they don't come to the meeting. And trust me, the answer you're gonna get, you are not gonna like. It's because I come here damn near 3 years straight, and I'll give you that answer. We ask, we do it nicely, we do it angrily, we do everything. You guys don't listen. You do what you want to do. That is the answer you're going to get. Because I got it last week with the speed limit and all the speeding up and down Whitefish. I knocked on every neighbor's door. That is the answer you will get. You ask that specific question. Why do you not show up for the town meetings? I have people asking me for everybody's telephone numbers because they know I come to this meeting. We have a lady that's got an issue with the tall grass on the side of the roads. Who do I tell her to call? All the board members. Don't ask me. Well, you know them all. No, I don't. I know certain ones. I have certain things. That is the answer you will get. Unfortunately, that is a crappy answer. I don't like it. I come here every time just because there's a lot of stuff going on in this town. There's a lot of things that need to be addressed. And I understand you guys got your hands full, but at some point it's a give and take. Like I said, I invite you, if you want to meet everybody in Valmy and beyond Valmy, down Whitefish, I will gladly stop in by me. I will gladly take you to every house and every person I know personally.
This- But the meeting for the comprehensive plan is a golden opportunity for people to speak their mind and address issues of concern to them. Thanks. Thanks, John.
Okay, under correspondence, we have, you've got the room tax listing or the permitted properties. There's just a copy of the contract we set up with Bay Lake to do the internet survey, which will be on the internet, and if somebody needs it, absolutely cannot access the internet, there'll be a copy, hard copy available at the town.
Depends upon if charter's working or not.
Pardon me?
Depends upon if charter's working or not.
Well, that's true. There is a laddie taped at the Whitefish Bay Association, a presentation on beach erosion. It's available on YouTube, so that anybody that has a concern about what to do and things, actions that they can take, it's available. We did that as part of the town. There's a copy of the Door County Tourism Audit. Oh, I got that on my desk. Transportation, oh no, sorry. This is real property, right? $55,000 worth of personal property, sorry.
Manufacturing role.
Manufacturing. Copy of the letter to Jennifer regarding her pond that she's building in front of her home on Bayshore Drive. Obviously, the lake is not enough. Also, a note from the zoning department dealing with people in Valmy who put a huge tank and operating a business on top of the hill in Valmy, that they have to address their concerns. This is the update on the grant that we received for the comprehensive plan. And then we have general transportation aids, receipt of that. I'm sorry I never gave you a chance to talk about that. I know you wanted to, Amy.
I'm good.
It's okay. So that's basically everything that's in correspondence. Announcements, the Sevastopol Historical Society, the History of Cheese Factories is July 29th at 6:30 here at the Town Hall. St. Peter and Paul's Fish Boil and Picnic is August 4th. And the 37th Annual Valmy Thresherie, located at Country View Road, is the 16th through the 18th. I think those dates are wrong. Aren't those dates the 6th, 7th, and 8th, or 8th?
No.
No, that's the,
They got a sign I just saw up there. Maybe they had last year's sign.
Maybe the one fell
I
off.
think the fair is going on.
The fair is
Yep.
that week.
Oh, they got a sign out there. I rode by today and I thought that date seemed strange. I think they have a date or a sign up there that might be wrong. Okay.
Well,
So-
it would never be that because it's never the week of the fair. The
Okay.
fair is always that first full week.
I think I saw a sign that might have had last year's sign with a stick on top or something. Okay, so it still is August 16th through the 18th. Our next meeting is August 19th at 7 p.m. And that's it, unless somebody has something that they want to put on the agenda for next month. If not, let me know. Then John's favorite part of the meeting is about to happen.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second that.
Motion by John, second by Jim to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned.